Hey guys, Aaron Kubitz, personal trainer at Functional Aesthetics EC. Today's video, I want to talk about just stop already with the high intensity interval training. Not that I think high intensity interval training is bad. I've been kind of beating the drum on the diet thing lately, talking about dietary extremes and why I don't think people should jump right on keto and stuff like that right away. When they're trying to lose weight, they should take a more balanced approach first, and then if that doesn't work, then try more extreme methods. It's kind of the same thing with high intensity interval training. So when people find out there's this new method and it's going to burn calories more efficient and I'll get this afterburn effect, so I'll be burning calories even when I'm sitting down, and then they go and start trying to do high intensity interval training like every day or at least every time they work out. And there's no doubt about it, high intensity interval training is extremely effective for burning fat, although it's more effective for burning your visceral fat, or the fat that's stored around your internal organs, as opposed to subcutaneous fat, which is the stuff that's right below your skin and essentially is what blurs your six-pack. You don't have the muscle definition and stuff like that when you have more subcutaneous fat. So exercise will burn visceral fat just because you have a lot of blood supply to that area. So some of the factors that are required to burn body fat is heat, to release the fat from the cells, and then you need a transport mechanism to get it into a muscle to be burned. And so the transport mechanism is your blood supply. So once the heat releases the fat from the cells, and then it's transported to your muscles to be burned, and your internal organs or the viscera and stuff like that, there is a lot of blood in that area, and there's also a lot of heat. Your core temperature, that's where you store most of your heat, as opposed to in the extremities. So this is why when you do things like high intensity interval training, which includes things like sprints and jumping and things like that, that you're going to burn a lot of that visceral fat, or the fat that's around your internal organs. However, as anybody who's ever tried dieting down for a bodybuilding show, that to get that extra lean look and to get really ripped looking, it takes a combination of lower intensity exercise but primarily dietary restrictions. So cutting back on your carbohydrates and your overall calories to help you strip away that fat, because subcutaneous fat, because it does not have as much blood, and there's also different things like alpha receptors, beta receptors, and whatnot that influence it too, but it makes it so that you're not going to see as much results from doing your exercise. You need to make sure that your diet is dialed in. So all that aside, the other thing I wanted to touch on in regards to high intensity interval training is that what most people, if you've been previously sedentary, going and throwing somebody in there and having them do all that sprinting and box jumps and things like that is going to cause a lot of stress on their tendons and ligaments, which haven't yet, not to mention your nervous system, which have not yet had a chance to develop the strength and resilience for that kind of training. And that's going to set them up for injury. So just like with diet, start out with a more balanced approach, first. Making sure you're getting your aerobic exercise in, your muscular endurance training, so it'd be like higher type repetition ranges, calisthenics, stuff like that. Do some strength training. And then if you want, you can throw a little bit of power training in there too, but that would be more along the lines of high intensity interval training anyway. And then once you've done that, even if you are a experienced athlete, you don't want to be doing high intensity interval training more than 2 to 3 times a week, because it is very taxing on the nervous system. And this brings me to my final point, or second to last point, which is that what most gyms and trainers, stuff like that, actually term high intensity interval training is not actually high intensity interval training, it's high effort. It's actually a form of circuit training, because the true meaning of interval training is that you have with high intensity interval training, it means that you're going all out as hard as you can, and you can only sustain that level of intensity for a maximum of 20 seconds, because your phosphagen system, which is what that relies on, will be depleted within 20 seconds, and then it also takes about 2 minutes to fully replenish it. So if you're spending less than, at least a minute 30 in between, you're not recovering in between those intense bouts. You're actually doing more of an endurance sort of training, and building your metabolic stress and stuff, but you're not actually training at high intensity, because the body physically cannot, no matter how fit you are, it cannot do that. If you do this more fit, you might be able to train at a higher intensity, but you'll still be doing aerobics. One thing that I like to give an example of this would be like if you're a distance runner, right? And so maybe you're running 7-minute miles for your training, or maybe even 8-minute miles in your training runs, and then you have some guy from Kenya, and he's running 5 30-minute miles in his training, because when he's running at race pace, he's running 5 minutes or below per mile. So even though he's running much faster, he's still not training. He's only training at about the same intensity that you are. So even if you're doing different muscle groups, you're still not fully recovering that phosphagen system. So even if you're doing, like, say, the legs, and then you're doing the upper body, that's more of a superset system, where you're doing pushing and pulling and things like that, or upper and lower, and you are recovering the specific muscles. But as far as intensity goes, you do need to spend that about 2 minutes recovering in between those super intense bouts, so that you are fully recovered and you can go at maximal intensity. And this is why you don't want to be doing this every day, because it is very fatiguing. Another example is where you'll have a sprinter out on the track, and they might spend 20 minutes actually at the track, but of that time they're only actually working out for 5 to 10 minutes of that time, because they're resting a couple minutes in between each sprint or whatever exercise that they're doing. So to wrap it all up, there is no fast track to your goals. It's consistency over time. Definitely use the high intensity interval training as it fits your goals and stuff, but as I talked about before, it all comes down to you're not trying to burn calories. If those in your exercises, you're trying to improve performance, and so you want to implement these tools into your workout toolbox in line with the goals that you're trying to achieve. That's why, like, when I was a runner, a distance runner and stuff, you'd have a training schedule where you'd first be building up your volume of your training, building up that aerobic fitness first, and then you start scaling back a little bit on the volume, and you start doing intervals on the track, building up a little bit more anaerobic capacity specific for your goals, and then you taper it before the race. So everything had a rhyme and a reason to why you were doing it. So if you guys found this insightful or helpful, let me know in the comments below. We'll see y'all next time for more health and fitness related information. Thanks, guys.